Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome in. It is Thursday. Oh my goodness, it's Thursday, folks. Can you tell what kind of week it's been around the Real Sports offices here? I'm Jesse Montano. I'm going to be joined by Meghan Angley in just a moment. Busy day around the office tomorrow. So we're going live with what would normally be our Friday show here today on Thursday. We got a really fun show for you guys. We're going to talk about Tyson Barrie, one of the Avs' original offensive defensemen, kind of paved the way, set the table for defensemen like Sam Girard, Cale Makar. Plus, we are going to start looking. We've done our division previews. We've had our media roundtable guests in the office. And now it is time for us to give you our lineup projections for opening night for the Colorado Avalanche. But first, you guys know the drill. I want to remind you about our great friends over at RefiJet. Did you know that you could refinance your auto loan? With RefiJet, you can save around $150 every month, all with just a soft credit pull and zero hassle. Lower payments, flexible terms, even cash back from your car's equity. RefiJet does the work. You get the savings. Start today at RefiJet.com, the faster, easier way to refinance. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody, welcome in. Good afternoon. It's Thursday, Friday Eve. You're close. You've almost made it to the end of the week. I'm Jesse Montano. She is Meghan Angley. It's Guerrilla Sports Off Ice. Got a fun episode coming up today, Meghan. We're going to talk about a player that I resonated with a lot in his heyday. And then we're going to start turning our attention not just towards the season, but towards opening night. As always, let's kick it off. How the heck are you on fall weather this week? No doubt about it.
Yeah, I dabble in pumpkin spice lattes, and I heard they're back. I don't know officially when they came back, but
yeah, it was this week.
It was this week,
Monday or Tuesday. Yeah,
because I've been seeing them crop up on the timeline now. So that's how I know that chapter is turning towards fall for real.
Yes, I believe it was yesterday. Chloe and Selena both came in with pumpkin spice, different versions, but pumpkin spice something from Starbucks.
You know, if the government wanted to attack women, it could be through pumpkin spice lattes. I think every fall, every woman has one.
If the government really wanted to,
that's a crazy
if the
thing
government
to say.
really wanted to thin out the female population, just wait till late August, early September.
All right, women, this is a call to action. Stop drinking pumpkin spice lattes.
Oh, that is so
as
good.
long as peppermint mocha is safe.
Yeah,
it's fine.
See, I'm not a coffee drinker, but even I enjoy red cup season. It's just like a nice sign of the time of the year.
It really is.
Holidays, and that's where my gripe with the winter starts, is once the red cups go away, it's like, yep, now it's just shitty winter. We're not even in the holidays anymore.
Oh.
Sad.
That's such a limited window.
I know.
They should have like Valentine's Day specialty cups for the entire month of February.
Keep them red.
Keep them red.
Christmas through Valentine's Day, but just switch it from red and green to red and pink.
Yeah.
Starbucks. I mean, no free plugs, obviously. But
wait,
some good ideas.
Wait, no free plugs. Whoa. Who said anything about Starbucks?
I mean, you also did just say women everywhere stop drinking pumpkin spice. This is an anti-plug, if anything.
Yikes. Yeah.
Meghan, the Colorado Avalanche had I think a guy that maybe underrated isn't necessarily the right word, I think, in my head, although I do think he falls in that category as well. Maybe one of the more underappreciated players, at least in Avalanche history. Hung it up this week. Tyson Barrie, Nathan MacKinnon's original offensive defenseman. And really, Meghan, what I consider to be one of the very first defensemen as part of this new age type defenseman that we heard about so much for the last, 10 years. And he came right after John-Michael Liles was with the Avs, who was kind of the first one that had that, like, oh, you could have a guy who can, put up points from the blue line. Tyson Barrie, I felt, was one of the first players that the Avs said, not only is this a player that can put up points from the blue line, we can actually drive offense through him and use him as the quarterback for what we do on the offensive side of the puck. I've got a soft spot for Tyson Barrie, and we're going to get into all of that as to why. But Tyson Barrie calls it a career. What says Meghan Angley?
It's a bright spot. I remember through some difficult chapters of Colorado Avalanche hockey. And I think, too, when we talk about the changing of guard, where the core was once looked upon as Matt Duchene, Ryan O'Reilly, Paul Stastny, the new core kind of emerged, and Tyson Barrie was a part of that there with Landeskog and McKinnon. Yeah. And so I think the cultural add that we'll definitely talk about on this show is a big part of that too, why he fit in so well with that group. But his on-ice contributions, his style of hockey, I think were built upon potential that the Avs saw in what John-Michael Liles brought to the lineup, which I think we can unpack more too. But seeing that, they saw another way to unlock more offense. Yep. And that's the short Cliff Notes version of what Tyson Barrie opened up in terms of possibility for the way that the Colorado Avalanche play hockey. And I think it's something that they lean on heavily to this day now. Their back end is a conduit for offense. And I think seeing the offensive gifts of Tyson Barrie in action and how they complement players like Nathan McKinnon and the contributions on the power play in particular, it all points to why they would be interested in this type of defenseman. And obviously the position has evolved even since his time in Colorado, but I view it as kind of a peak too. Like, it's great for me to remember Tyson Barrie in the Colorado Avalanche days, because I think that was some of his best hockey too. And it was definitely a needed bright spot. Like, his first, I'll say full-time season, he was still straddling a little bit of AHL time, was when they were first in the Central under Patrick Waugh, and obviously helped lead them back to the playoffs, which ended in a little bit of heartbreak with Tyson Barrie at the center. But I remember watching that Minnesota Wild Avs series at DU with my friends and just being so hyped on the direction that the Avs are headed.
Yeah. Gosh, we could do an entire pod on just those few years of the Patrick Waugh era and the emotional swings that went back and forth of watching that first season. It was like cup contenders from here on out. And then it was just such a weird couple of years. But no, there were so many things there that you said that I want to, go back and touch on. But I loved what you said about what they saw in a guy like John-Michael Liles and what he was able to bring to the Avs lineup. And really, when Patrick Waugh got here as a coach, like you said, that was really when Tyson Barrie, Patrick Waugh had the take the reins off and just let the players go play, let them lean into their strengths. And I think you saw some of that, but then once Jared Bednar got here, they really started to dial in, like, all right, what if we just don't take the reins off him? What if we, actually funnel this offense through a guy like him? And, the way that him and Nathan McKinnon worked together, the way that he controlled the blue line, maybe not as elite as a guy like Cale Makar, but Tyson Barrie had a pretty special ability to hold the blue line, keep pucks in, keep plays alive. And especially in an era where Eric Johnson was, the guy back there for multiple years and was a guy who was, supposed to be that offensive type guy. Suddenly you had a guy like Tyson Barrie who seemed like he specialized in getting pucks through traffic. He had great vision, the chemistry between him, Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen on that power play. It really was, and the reason I have a soft spot for a guy like Tyson Barrie, I grew up playing defense from the time I was little. It was born out of a place where it was, hey, no one wants to play defense. If I do that, I'll get to play more. And so that was where it started. But, I'm not the tallest guy in the world. And Tyson Barrie was one of the first guys that I remember of being like, whoa, this is a guy that's smaller. He's a defender. He's clearly offensively gifted. And they found a way to, like you said, I feel like there were so many of these guys that we would see, but they were AHL, NHL tweeners. No one really knew how to use them because Tyson Barrie wasn't very strong in his own end for portions of his career. but this was the first guy where it really seemed like he's a key part of what they're doing, not only in the locker room personality wise, but on the ice. He's, not leading rushes, but he's joining in every rush. He was always that guy coming in late, third or fourth man into the zone. It seemed like he's had lanes to the net like crazy. And it was the first guy that, like I said, I remember, I wasn't alive for Bobby Orr and all that stuff, but like it was one of the first players I remember, like it's a smaller, non-traditional type of defenseman that a team is actually building something around. And I just remember finding it so cool in the way that he found success within these systems.
When you have such a visionary at the blue line, you extend zone time, and that helps to unlock the careers of players like McKinnon, who want possession of the puck. And with Barrie is kind of that extra line of defense at the blue line, keeping the puck in the zone and having the vision to play make and complement a player like McKinnon, it led to better possession numbers. And so you look at some of the even strength Corsi for percentage numbers of very past Avalanche seasons among the defensemen, and they're all below 50. And these were some struggling Avalanche teams too, so that's important context. But Barrie, especially fresh on the scene, was above 50, and I think that added zone possession just led to better overall possession numbers for the Avs in the direction that they headed to today, the team that we know as one of the strongest puck possession teams. And you can look past then some mistakes defensively when you just hold on to the puck more than the other team. And I say that carefully because obviously Tyson Barrie had a very long career in the NHL. And so that's something I don't want to diminish either. But there are shortcomings, in his game, and the defensive lapses definitely add up over time. But when you look back to the year that Tyson Barrie was drafted, like that Avalanche team leading up to that summer, they'd finished with the worst goals for in the league. And so they just weren't getting the offense that they needed. But John-Michael Liles in his 5th NHL season had been producing at a really consistent clip at that point, 39 points, and he finishes with a career high in ice time. And so they're leaning on this heavy points producer and John-Michael Liles more than ever before. So he's being trusted with big minutes, 6th on the team in goals, 4th in points. And that's just among all skaters. And so I think they saw the potential of, what if we could get more offense starting from the back end out? Look at what John-Michael Liles is doing. So they go into that draft, they get Stephen Elliott, then they get John-Michael Liles.
Glad you brought him up.
And so I think the interesting thing too is you've got 2 righties, and you're looking at this lefty and Liles. Like maybe there's this future too of maybe these are players that can complement Liles down the road. Obviously, it took Barrie a few more seasons before he actually cracked the NHL, but he went on back to the Kelowna Rockets, and he wore a letter in his final season, a new career high in points, and was above a point per game in production in those playoffs. And so he demonstrated that he could sort of add offensively a lot of what John-Michael Liles had been doing consistently. And I think I point that out because I imagine if I'm putting myself in the shoes of the Avs front office at that time, this was something they very keenly wanted because they saw the potential in what Liles was bringing consistently, season by season. And when Barrie finally assumed a more full-time role in the NHL, that's exactly what he did. And it's important, I think, to note then in the direction that the Avs moved as becoming a stronger puck possession team and unlocking a lot of their offense from the blue line out. I kind of, I trace it back to Liles a little bit, but Barrie certainly in complementing then some of the high-end draft talent that they got in players like McKinnon once upon a time.
Well, so I'm first, I'm glad you mentioned Stephen Elliott because if you remember, he scored a goal in his first game with the Avs. Him and Barrie both got their NHL debuts in the 11-12 season. Stephen Elliott scored with a great shot from the blue line through traffic. Tyson Barrie, I have it right here, 10 games, no goals, no points. And I remember thinking like, that Barrie dude sucks. Stephen Elliott's clearly going to be the much better player here.
I loved Stephen Elliott, you guys.
Because he played almost half the season in his rookie year, put up a few points, looked good. Barrie got sent back down to Lake Erie. And I was like, oh, all right, well, at least one of these kids hit. And I mean, they ended up having completely opposite careers beyond that. But no, you mentioned, Tyson Barrie gets drafted. goes back in his D+1 year, almost 80 points with the Kelowna Rockets. And again, like, you look back on it now, and with hindsight, like, I remember in the Makar draft year, those are point totals that before you do any other type of scouting on a defenseman, analytic research, anything like that, those are eye-popping numbers for a defenseman. And I actually remember saying that. It was one of the very first few pods that I was ever on, of just talking about Cale Makar in his draft year, because he was kind of a late riser, saying, gosh, that, I don't care what league it is, that's crazy numbers for a defenseman. Tyson Barrie kind of went through the same thing in his D+1 and then +2 years, where it's just like, those are just impressive totals. Let me look into this kid a little bit more. And I want to circle back to what you were talking about with the cultural fit, because not only was this someone that I think when you hear, old teammates, players that played with them, whether it be in juniors, American League, or a handful of NHL teams, there's just a magnetism about Tyson Barrie that everybody seems to just love this guy. Everyone wants him on their team. And I think that started immediately when he got into the system. And, you talked about, Nathan MacKinnon, and the way that not only Tyson Barrie's way that he plays unlocked so many things for Nathan MacKinnon and in those early years, but also the bond that those two formed immediately. Yeah. And I think that tells you something about Tyson Barrie. Not that, Nathan MacKinnon's a hard guy to get along with, but, fierce competitor, especially, at the time, young, still learning his way. And this is a guy that he latched onto immediately, and they were kind of able to, come up through the system together. I think the Avs still have a good leadership core in that room. But I remember, and I want your thoughts on, and Tyson Barrie tells a story about when Cale Makar scored that first goal. He said, we were so excited, but I remember thinking after the game, like, that's probably it for me here. Even though it was Gabe Landeskog, Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, now you have Cale Makar, you have this really exciting core that's starting to grow together. JT Compher. When they moved on from Tyson Barrie, it felt like a huge loss, not because they weren't getting, the production and all that stuff on the ice, but because of what you were losing out of the locker room.
Right.
And I just want your thoughts on again, what that says about a guy like Tyson Barrie, that you hear the names I just listed, and knowing what they went on to do with that group, it still felt like a real loss for that locker room to lose a guy like Tyson Barrie.
Yeah, because you could see it on the players' faces that loss was felt. They loved him as a teammate, as a friend, and obviously in hindsight we know it worked out for the best for the Avs side of it, but it reminds me on a smaller scale of kind of the shock and the gut punch of losing Mikko Rantanen. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a testament to, in maybe lesser time, but still pretty good amount of seasons spent with the Avs, losing such a lifelong friend, obviously, still friends with Nathan MacKinnon to this day for a reason, and went on to do this. Every team, the posts on the heels of Tyson Barrie's retirement have come from all of his former teammates on all of the different stops along the way. And I think that says everything about Tyson Barrie.
You see, when a player retires, you see a few guys like, hey, best of luck, but you're 100% right. Tyson Barrie's Instagram story was 30 pages long, and it was mostly him reposting other things past teammates had said about him. I've never seen, at least to my memory, that kind of outpouring of direct support, not just hey, congrats on a great career. Everyone seemed like an inside joke, a funny picture, a different nickname. Everybody just loved him. And I want to circle back to another thing you said about some of his best years were in Colorado.
There's so many nice comments. People have personal Barrie stories.
And it's so awesome. Barrie once paid for mine and my girlfriend's meal on our anniversary. Guy's a gem. Let's see. Barrie bought me a shot one time in 2015 after I bought him one. And we got a super chat. T-Bear, the OG PP merchant. He definitely cashed on the power play, and that's where I was going to go next. Was not only did he helped elevate the play of guys like a young Nathan MacKinnon and a young Mikko Rantanen, but they also really helped him set the stage for the rest of his career and what he was able to go on and do. How about this for power play line mates over your career? You go from playing behind Nathan MacKinnon to playing behind Austin Matthews to playing behind Connor McDavid. Not bad for Tyson Barrie. And we talk all the time about, like, you can't just put anybody out there with guys like Connor McDavid, Nathan MacKinnon, Austin Matthews. They have to be able to play with elite talent. That was something that Tyson Barrie, no doubt about it, established in his career. I can play with elite talent. And he did it better than anyone for at least a few years in the NHL.
Yeah, I think you obviously want a really well-rounded defenseman, but you also shouldn't water down a defenseman who has such great vision on the power play. I mean, even look at what a key piece in the Edmonton Oilers' success Evan Bouchard is. Yes. I would liken that to the significance of Tyson Barrie's impact on Avs power plays once upon a time with young, skilled players like Nathan MacKinnon. Like the Avs power play, I think we hold it to such a high standard because we started to see what it was capable of when this started to figure itself out. And season by season, because it was a lot of the same core guys on that top unit, they found, I know it's not to our liking, but they found pretty routine success, especially over a regular season. And so that's why I think to this day, we hold the power play to a high standard. And it starts with a standard that's set with having Barrie there walking the blue line.
Well, and not only that, but again, he picked up a lot of points on the power play over the course of his career. But again, from my perspective, I remember it being one of those things where what you're talking about in that high standard, that was, you had a real threat to shoot the puck at the point. You couldn't just, what guys used to do to Alex Ovechkin, keep a stick in the lane on the, the left and right flank. These are where the shooters are. You had to pay attention to Tyson Barrie up top, because not only was he a threat to make a great pass, get a puck through, whatever, he had an absolute bomb of a one-timer, and it freed up guys like Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Gabe Landeskog down low. Like it forced penalty kills to have to cover the point for the Avalanche. And like you said, there is shades of that today in how they execute that power play. One of my favorite and least favorite Tyson Barrie stats comes from 2020-2021. Where he's the only player in NHL history to lead all defensemen in points in a season, yet not receive a single Norris Trophy vote. Like I said, he had 48 points in 56 games with the Edmonton Oilers in the COVID-shortened season. I'm not going to argue that Tyson Barrie is like one of the greatest defensemen of all time, but he was absolutely at the forefront of this wave of new age defensemen, and he was, for a couple years there, the cream of the crop when it came to offensive defensemen, players that you could drive offense through. Got an Evan Rowell appearance here in the chat. I asked him about that Norris snub. As usual, he had a good sense of humor about it. It actually says about tit, but we all make typos. Good sense of humor about that. Fix the typo. That's the only thing about Tyson Barrie, just all around great dude. But yeah, he was snubbed for the Norris. Probably deserved at least a vote, right?
Right.
But yeah, like I said, I really do. I think from I'm not paid to write. Well, that's why you have editors. That's why the Gazette has people to double check your work. I would say honestly, from 2018 to 2022, Megan, I would have put him. Here, how about this? Between 2014 and 2021, he was 5th in 5-on-5 points and 7th in points among defensemen over those 8 years. There was a real argument that he was, in the upper tier of NHL defensemen
Right,
for a
in the
stretch.
Eric Carlson category.
Yes, exactly. He was also the only player in the cap era to play 85 games in a season. Just a lot of fun Tyson Barrie tidbits along the way. And, as Evan pointed out there in the chat, just a pleasure to be around all the time too. And that just kind of underscores who he was as a player.
I think the balance he struck of being a very hard worker and in doing so, winning over the likes of Nathan MacKinnon while not taking himself too seriously is what made him so likable and so authentic to other people. I think authenticity too is what helped him to connect with everyone so immediately. Is he just seems like he's so authentically himself 24/7. And I think back to that intermission interview during the alumni game too, how he just had no filter. And I really appreciate that about him. And I imagine that is why he was so beloved by everybody that he seemed to cross paths with.
Yeah. And he was kind of the ultimate, you live with the mistakes because what he provides on the other end of the rink, was so valuable at the time to a team that, like you had pointed out, was looking for offense. And they were looking for a way to bolster the way that they, could put up points.
I don't think he shied away from the fact that he made mistakes either. There are some players who would maybe be overly defensive, like, but what about the points? And I think he was very honest with himself about, appreciating the offensive gifts that he has while recognizing the mistakes being made too and wanting better.
He always seemed to me like he really understood who he was not only as a player,
perfect,
but as a person too, to your point with the authenticity stuff. Tyson Barrie never once tried to claim I'm a shutdown type defenseman. I'm, put me out there in the last minute. I'm going to make sure that we don't give one up. Like, to your point, he knew where his limitations were. And yeah, he didn't shy away from that. Was also on the receiving end of some heavy collisions over the course of his career. But again, shocker, always had a good sense of humor about it. I remember the Dustin Byfuglien one in general, or in particular. And I actually think Kyle Keefe even posted a video of like the interview they did with him after the game. He was like, yeah, that was one of the bigger ones I've ever taken in my career, but hey, glad I was just able to get right back up. And so, yeah, I never understood the Tyson Barrie hate purely from the, like, how do you hate this guy?
Right.
How do you hate on this guy? And I hope we see him in the media space a bit. One of my favorite guys that I got a very, very brief chance to cover. And like I said, he's genuinely one of my all-time favorite players just because of what he represented as a new age defenseman.
I think too, this position has evolved to what we know it to be today in Cale Makar as sort of the blueprint for what young defensemen should strive to be. But I think it's worth noting that starts somewhere. And I don't think it starts solely with Tyson Barrie, but within the Avs organization and the trajectory of defensemen since, I certainly think he is a key part in how the Avs execute defensively today as we know it.
Well, I loved your call out too, because someone in the chat had said, had mentioned, like, the Avs have had some innovators on their blue line, Sandis Ozolinsh, John-Michael Liles, Tyson Barrie. But to the point that you made, yes, there we go. Thank you, John. And now Cale Makar, but to the point that you had made, it really did feel like with the drafting of Stephen Elliott and Tyson Barrie, and then the way that the team, kind of committed to Tyson Barrie after that, it seemed like that was the first time where it was like, well, wait a minute. Can we be more intentional about this?
Right. Let's give them some more meaningful minutes, opportunity.
And let's build something around them a little bit here. And maybe that's where it did differ a bit from Sandis Ozolinsh and John-Michael Liles, where while great offensive producers, it felt like it was very intentional. And I think there's an argument to be made. And at the end of the day, there's only a few people in the front office that actually know this, but you have to wonder if the fact that they took a chance on Cale Makar, who came from a league down than you would normally expect, had NCAA commitments. There were a million reasons why you shouldn't have drafted Cale Makar at number 4. Late riser in the draft. Is it all just hype? Hadn't really played. He didn't play at WJCs. He played in the, under 18 tournament. And there's a bunch of reasons. And you almost wonder if their familiarity with a guy like Tyson Barrie and what he could bring allowed them to feel more comfortable drafting a guy like Cale Makar, because they were able to identify, not only do we see in this guy what we saw in Tyson, but we see even more. And there were 3 teams ahead of the Avs that did not feel comfortable taking Cale Makar.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet you they all wish that they would have had some of that insight looking back on it now.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Tyson Barrie on a really great career. Like I said, I hope best of luck to him, and hopefully we see him around on the telly.
The team wrestling story.
Oh,
the injury in the hotel.
Yes. All right. So, I believe the story goes, and they've kept it pretty under wraps since. I believe it was him and Nate were wrestling, right?
I thought it was him and Nate too.
And they were wrestling around before World Championships in the summer, and got a little bit too rowdy, and Tyson Barrie ended up having to leave the tournament with an injury because he got hurt wrestling in the locker room. And I just, that sums it up.
In the locker room?
Oh, I'm sorry. In the hotel room.
I thought, and honestly, it's funny either way, but it's funnier in the hotel room into the glass coffee table. Hello?
Oh, man. And again, like I said, that just kind of sums him up perfectly. Congratulations, Tyson Barrie. Hey, we have a little bit of breaking news for the Avs. This is technically breaking news. Victor Olofsson will wear number 95 for the Colorado Avalanche.
All right.
There you go. Olofsson, number 95, last one to wear it, Andre Burakovsky.
I was just about to say the parallels we've drawn to Olofsson and Burakovsky already. This is really fun.
There we go.
Does that say live, laugh, love, Tyson Barrie? I think that sums it up perfectly.
Honestly, that's what I should have made the thumbnail. Live, laugh, love, Barrie.
Barrie.
I think I've told you my wife loves Tyson Barrie.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
She loves
Aw.
Tyson Barrie. Anything else on T-Buttes?
T-Buttes, T-Bear. You're right. There are a lot of nicknames for him.
nicknames.
No, nothing else. But congratulations to Tyson Barrie. 14-year NHL career. Being an undersized defenseman. It's pretty good.
Not bad.
It's pretty good.
Not bad. There's a lot of Stephen Elliott would have taken that. And that wasn't meant to be a side swipe.
I know. I feel really. I loved Stephen Elliott.
As soon as it left my mouth, I was like, that seemed mean, and it wasn't supposed to be. Megan, we are barreling towards the start of training camp here, thankfully. Big shout out to all of our guests the last couple of weeks who have helped Megan and I get through the month of August, which is historically the toughest month to get through for a hockey podcast that you need new content for. So shout out to all of our guests who have come on, and open invite for all you other media folks out there that we haven't gotten to yet. Looking at you, Riker.
Future media personality Tyson Barrie, if you'd like to come on the show.
Open invite. We'll bring the third chair, but you can have my chair.
We'll hide the glass coffee table.
Yes, yeah. Tyson Barrie, we can guarantee a glass coffee table free environment for you to come on the pod. We're barreling towards the start of training camp, and you and I have done our division previews. Chloe is slowly pushing out our division prediction rankings, where we think teams will finish, where we'll be wrong. I'll definitely be wrong, especially in the Pacific Division. But we've gotten some requests, and we want to turn our attention not just to the season and, big picture, opening night in particular. It feels like this roster is starting to take a little bit more shape here. And we're getting closer and closer, I think, to what we're going to see on opening night. Now, the Avs are almost always going to hand out at least one, if not two PTOs to see what they can make of, whatever leftover room that they've got. Or see if there's an extra hole that they can plug with a guy who's still sitting around, come September. So not necessarily is not to say that they aren't going to make any more moves. And in fact, that you are predicting a little bit that what they might do with one of those PTOs. But we just wanted to get into what our predictions were for opening night lineups. Do you want to start with yours or start with mine?
Mine's a little crazy.
All right,
let's start with yours.
Let's start with mine. So here it is. Here is my projected opening night lineup. Shout out to Puckpedia for helping us with these beautiful looking lineups here that we were able to go in and screenshot. Real quick, there was a comment that just came in talking about Matt Cook taking out Tyson Barrie in the first round of the first Patrick Waugh year. That year ended disappointing, but if that doesn't happen, it probably doesn't. Back to the lineup here. Not much of a surprise there in the top 6. You got Nathan McKinnon in between Arturi Lehkonen and Marty Netchis. Brock Nelson centering Val Nichushkin, Gabe Landeskog. And for me, Megan, and I believe you had the same, I do think Jack Drury gets first right of refusal for that 3C look to start the season if they don't bring someone in, to fill that role definitively. And I think he'll be flanked by Victor Olofsson. And I do think they like Ross Colton there on the wall. So that leaves a hole on your fourth line at the center spot. And I do think Zakir or Zakar?
I know it is Zakar, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, see, I've been also saying Zakar. Zakar Bardakov in the middle, coming over from the KHL, flanked by Parker Kelly and Yoel Kivy. Ronta on the back end, pretty cut and paste from last year. Devon Taves, Cale Makar, Sam Girard, Josh Manson. And then I've got Sam Malinsky playing on the his off wall alongside Brent Burns. Obviously, Mackenzie Blackwood, Scott Wedgwood, and then I do have Keaton Middleton as my extra with LOC on the shelf to get things started as he comes back from that hip injury. Your thoughts on this, Megan? I feel like this is the safe prediction.
Yeah.
And that's usually not what they end up going with. There's usually at least one curveball thrown in there. But this is kind of my thinking on, hey, quiet summer. Maybe they'll just kind of keep the noise to a minimum and go with the lowest hanging fruit roster.
I think it's safe, but I don't think safe is necessarily bad because some of it too is just practical.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into that issue when I was making mine that I don't know that some of what I'm projecting is really in my gut what I believe to be most realistic, but life is short and we should have fun also.
So true.
But I like this still. I think you're having some fun, right? I think we're both in agreement that Jack Drury deserves that first chance at the 3C spot. I think he's earned that. I think too, in a little bit of the opportunity at 3C, just following the trade from Carolina, they had him there. And it was fine enough that I'd be curious to see more as well. So I love it. This is the time of year to run with this type of lineup and explore some of these options. So I feel similarly about Bardakov then.
Yeah.
I'm really nervous. It's more so just that transition is so hard to predict.
It's a much bigger gap than folks give it credit for.
And then especially with the responsibility of playing down the middle. And so that is too a part of the lineup that by year's end last year, I think the Avs discovered how important it was to have strength down the middle and responsible, trusted players with a strong two-way game. And so I'm nervous that they won't feel that comfort out the gate, but it's also the time of year to explore if that's there or not. So that's where I go back and forth on Bardakov. I think they could spot shift him in the middle, but I could also see them maybe moving to a more trusted option in the middle and having Bardakov on the wall. But this is where you and I before the show talked about they are not bringing him over from the KHL to play with the Colorado Eagles. Right. So it's hard for me to, in good faith, leave him off the opening night roster. And I think, too, what he did in the KHL this last year demonstrated a style of play that I think can fit under the way that Bednar likes to play. So it's not as hard to convince me as maybe other past prospects in a depth role that come from having played a high skill role to now needing to be the kind of blue collar depth player. I actually think Bardakov's game will translate more naturally to that, but I'm still nervous. Everything else though, like the back end is a question mark in a fun way, because I guess we could show my lineup
I was gonna say,
to kind of see where this differs.
Yeah, so let's jump over to yours. Top 9 looks the same. I think that's something that you and I both feel pretty confident on, that top 9, and that's what we've talked a lot about, right? You want to get that top 9 solidified, and then whatever you're messing with on the bottom, you can. Top 9 looks the same. Megan actually has Parker Kelly in the middle there, which I think is something to keep in mind with what you were also talking just a second ago with, if they would feel more comfortable with Bardakov moving to the wall, that's probably who they'd swap him with.
Yes.
Either way. Megan has Matt Steinberg, and we're going to get into why you went this way. Matt Steinberg actually making the roster out of camp, playing on that fourth line alongside Parker Kelly and Yoel Kiviranta. And then on that back end, Devon Taves, Cale Makar. And I love this one, Megan. Sam Girard with Brent Burns on that second pair. Sam Malinsky still playing on the off wall, but this time with Josh Manson. And then here is the part where we said there's one move that Megan is predicting a little bit, as much as you want to call this a prediction. John Merrill still sitting out there. This is someone that when we were talking before, Megan identified like that could be the PTO guy, left-handed D, and maybe coming in as your extra in place of Keaton Middleton. Logan O'Connor still on the shelf. And of course, Mackenzie Blackwood, Scott Wedgwood in net.
I think with that PTO one, I'm dreaming on it a little bit. This is probably a player that will have a few offers from other teams. I also am curious if there's a behind the scenes reason why he hasn't signed. You know, maybe there's some injury or something that we're not aware of. Because otherwise, this is a player that a lot of teams should want as a depth defenseman, potentially even in a more full-time role too. Like the Avs just kind of have the luxury of a pretty solid decor, though it's obviously heavy-handed on the right side. That's still a concern of mine. So this feels like, in going back to experimenting, this might be the time of year that they experiment with Malinsky on his offside and see how they feel about it. So I have Brent Burns on that second pair with Girard, in part because of what Brent Burns reportedly expressed to Carolina and wanting to still have big minutes, big role. And I think in coming to Colorado, there's still an expectation that, though maybe not a top pair role like he had been playing with Slavin, he'll still have big minutes. And so it's hard for me to justify putting Brent Burns on the third pair. Now, there is a world, though, where that second and third pair, especially if it is some combination of those four guys, is deployed pretty evenly, that with maybe some second power play unit time for Brent Burns, PK time, he's still getting significant minutes on a nightly basis to satisfy his wants. And maybe that second, third pair are deployed more evenly, that it kind of blurs what is the second and third pair at that point. Because I said this to Corey Massasak on the show when he originally pitched Girard and Brent Burns. Because I'm intrigued. It sounds fun. I'm just so unsure if I will like Manson and Malinsky. I think that there's an element of Manson's game that could really complement Malinsky's as well. But there is something just at first glance, without seeing it in action, that feels a little mismatched to me. But again, I want to see it in action before I really have any opinion about it. I could end up loving it. So, you know, if some of that meanness in Manson's game rubs off on Malinsky, this could be a beautiful pairing.
Well, and I look at it as kind of like does this give Sam Malinsky the safety net and security to tap back into a little bit more of that offensive game that we saw in the back half of last year and really on display in his rookie year? Does it give you an extra lane up the ice, knowing that you're playing alongside a guy like Josh Manson, who, as you pointed out earlier this summer, has some nice offensive chops himself? You know, I totally see the makings of a pairing that could surprise and really like it.
Manson strikes me as a really affirming teammate too, who would encourage Malinsky to be confident. And I could see that being a really good result of that pairing as well.
Yeah. And then
Yeehaw, YOLO pairing. No, I love it. And the other thing I wanted to point out too is this isn't to demerit Keaton Middleton. I just think this is going to be a time of year waiver wire is going to be looked at very closely. And so you have to be careful about which players you are passing through. And I just feel Keaton Middleton probably could survive passing through waivers as needed, maybe compared to some of these other players that I think they should try to hold on to and see what they have in them first. So it's not to say there isn't a place for Keaton Middleton later in the season to be the extra guy if things don't work out. But that's why I YOLO'd it with John Merrill as the PTO option. It just points to them needing maybe a more trusted NHL player and a left-handed option there on the back end.
Let's get those 43-degree bags up to Loveland.
Actually, though, I've been finding these TikToks where like these girlfriends are talking about their boyfriends going off for their seasons and how their gear stinks, and I want to comment on them, but I don't want to seem like I have a motive with 43 degrees. Like, I genuinely think they could benefit from this product. I almost want to make a burner account so that I can comment on these TikToks.
I_LUV_43.
I love 43. They'll never see it coming.
They'll never know. Megan, here's my takeaway from looking at both of these, either version of it. And I want to circle back to Matt Steinberg.
Yes,
here.
please. Let me defend myself.
No.
I didn't yeet Kiviranta this time,
yeah,
guys.
I was going to say, the biggest surprise that Megan had you all Kiviranta on her roster.
Hey,
Jeez
hold
Louise.
on.
Well, no, but here's what I was going to say. Whether it's Bardakov or Steinberg, whether it's Parker Kelly in the middle or on the wall, whether you are bringing in a guy like John Merrill, how much better do you feel about these right now than we did a month ago when we were having a similar conversation of, Cale, what does it look like? This feels like quoting our good friend Corey, this feels like a November, December roster that can really compete and really win some games for you. Need some tweaks for you to feel good about it being a May roster, a June roster. But I think Chris McFarland, Joe Sakic, good business here this summer so far.
Yeah, because I think back to the struggles they had with Casey Middlestat and trying to get Juuso Parssinen in a pinch, in a panic. And this feels like a roster that shouldn't run into as much panic because they've locked up that 2C position and the depth has internal options that will get you by. And that's why I gave a little bit of a nod to Matt Steinberg. Yeah. I'm nervous around what Bardakov will be out the gate at the NHL level. But going back to what we talked about with your roster, they didn't bring him over here to play for the Eagles. So I'm very carefully having Steinberg get a chance out the gate. And that's because he already has a little bit of his game, one, just adjusted to the Eagles' AV system to include their penalty kill. And so in a pinch, that is a player that can get shifts on a PK and probably jump into it a bit more readily. And then his game, in comparison to some of the other players that we've mentioned as already internal options like Ivan, Prishepov, Jason Poland even, it separates because of how mean and nasty he plays and how much I think Jared Bednar loves it. And he obviously got the suspension, served it, so he needs to toe that line very carefully. But I imagine that's a player that Bednar would want to circle back to see his fit and experiment a little bit with it. So really, I have Steinberg in there because I liked what I saw of him. He missed some time in the Eagles playoff run, and I think they were managing his minutes as well, even when he did return. But there was a significant difference in the Eagles lineup when he wasn't in it. And similarly, some of the best hockey I saw from him was in overtime when the stakes were at their highest. And so not only was he trusted with that opportunity, I loved what I saw from him. So I'm just giving him a little bit of that trust factor to make this projected opening night lineup. And it's still me pulling for Bardakov, though, to see what he has through camp. And I think that's going to carry some weight, too, that I don't want to not include in this conversation.
So let me tell you why I think you might actually end up being right with Matt Steinberg on that opening night lineup. On top of everything you just said in favor of Matt Steinberg, Jared Bednar has shown since he's been here with these kids that come over from the KHL with the full intention of playing in the NHL. He likes to get them some AHL games first. Nikolai Kovalenko was able to come over late enough at the end of a season that he was able to jump in with the Eagles at the end of the previous season and into the playoffs, I believe. Yes. And into the playoffs. Played a couple games with the Eagles postseason. Go back a couple years before that. Andrei Mironov, who it did not work out with, and again had a pretty clear out clause in his contract that said, if I'm playing in the AHL for too long, I'm leaving.
Right.
They still started him there. As we had all penciled him into the opening night lineup, and they started him in Loveland. He got a call up pretty quick, and then he kind of bounced up and down. But Jared Bednar, like we were saying earlier, yes, these guys come over with the expectation they are playing in the NHL. That's why they're coming over from Russia. Jared Bednar is still going to play the players that he feels gives them the best chance. And he has shown he likes for guys to go get their feet wet on North American ice with the Colorado Eagles. So I actually totally see a world where it is Matt Steinberg on opening night, maybe not even by, Halloween is he still here and, Bardakov is with the Eagles. But I think because of that, I look at the players and say, okay, well, who's the most Jared Bednar type guy? Who's going to give you that fourth line, attitude, that fill that type of role? I think Matt Steinberg's a great call. And I think had it not been for that 2-game suspension, we probably would have seen him again last year, and he had the injury and all that stuff as well. But I think this is a guy that Jared Bednar liked. I think he, like you said, he's a little mean, plays with some jam. I think there's absolutely a world where opening night, it's Matt Steinberg, and maybe 2-3 weeks later, it's Zakhar Bardakov. But I think that's a good prediction.
And I just want to point out, he's listed as a center wing. Mm-hmm. He is at the pro level a winger. Yep. So I've seen some people maybe say maybe he's the 4C solution. I would sooner predict Parker Kelly, and it's because Parker Kelly moonlighted as a 3C for pretty good chunks last year, and he held up. And so that's why I think if you need to have Parker Kelly down the middle opening night, he can handle it.
Especially in a fourth line role.
Exactly. Perhaps more responsibly than trying to throw Steinberg back in the middle or even Bardakov like fresh from the KHL. Yeah. I think you'll run into some more trouble, though. Those are good reps for a player to learn where he's at the NHL level too. The trust factor, Parker Kelly.
Absolutely. If you're on the audio only pod, just to run through it one more time, for my roster on opening night in LA, I am predicting Arturi Lehkonen skating with Nathan MacKinnon and Marty Netchis, Gabe Landeskog, Brock Nelson, Val Nichushkin, Victor Olofsson, wearing number 95 for the Colorado Avalanche, Jack Drury and Ross Colton on the wall, Parker Kelly, Zakhar Bardakov in the middle, and then Yoel Kiviranta. On D, I've got Devon Taves, Cale Makar, Sam Girard, Josh Manson, and then Sam Alinsky with Brent Burns. Keaton Middleton is my extra. Logan O'Connor riding that IR. Mackenzie Blackwood, Scott Wedgwood in net. And for Megan, for our auditory listeners, Arturi Lehkonen, Nathan MacKinnon, Marty Netchis, Gabe Landeskog with Brock Nelson and Val Nichushkin, Victor Olofsson with Jack Drury and Ross Colton. Top 9 stays the same, Megan. A little bit of variance here as we head down the lineup a bit. Matt Steinberg making that opening night roster with Parker Kelly and Yoel Kiviranta. Then on the back end, Taves paired with Makar, Sam Girard and Brent Burns on that second pair. Sam Alinsky playing on the off wall with Josh Manson. Logan O'Connor, of course, injured. And then Megan is predicting that there's a chance we see a John Merrill PTO. He could end up being that extra defenseman come opening night as another lefty. Megan, we might have done something special here. I'm kind of out of stuff and we're under an hour.
Whoa!
Do you have like 20 minutes worth of stuff for us to talk about just so that this feels normal, or should we just not?
Let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. Let's, because look, I could find something to talk about, but we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that.
We'll end it on this. It's this comment that just came in. Amazing what a difference a year makes, especially with the depth. You have Gabe Landeskog back. That is a part of the Mikko Rantanen conversation that's been left out quite a bit is, hey, here's suddenly a $7 million player that is back in your lineup. You've got Gabe Landeskog back. I think you feel pretty good about your top 6. You got a guy like Marty Netchis in a contract year. You've got a guy like Brock Nelson. It allowed the Avs to focus on their depth. And I think while not complete, I think you're heading into this season a lot more comfortable than you were this time a year ago.
These are small problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are, I don't even want to call them problems. Every NHL team has to kind of navigate some challenges at the start of the year in particular. These are really easy to overcome problems.
Yep. And as that comment points out, we are 40 days away from the start of the season, and we are weeks away from the open of training camp. I actually believe, Megan, if my math is correct here, we are 2 weeks exactly, 14 days from our first day back at the rink for official team activities. I'm really looking forward to it. Guys are going to start getting into town here probably after this weekend. You're going to see most everybody start to show back up, joining in those captain skates that are already going on down at Family Sports. That's going to do it for today. Big congratulations to Tyson Barrie on the retirement. And again, looking at these rosters, getting more and more excited for the start of the year. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. We got John behind the glass today, making sure all of this hits your ear holes and makes it onto your screens. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back at it on not Monday, Tuesday, because of the holiday. We're trying our hardest to limit what's going on in the studio on Monday. So we'll be back at it on Tuesday. I'm sure we'll have plenty of great content coming your guys' way. Keep your guys' eyes tuned into what we're doing here at Guerrilla Sports. Some fun announcements coming tomorrow as the Colorado Buffaloes, Megan, kick off their season. Some fun stuff in the works here. She's Megan. I'm Jesse. John behind the glass. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
See ya.